Hello everyone, welcome to another session. This session we will have a look at what are the different types of accounting. That means we will look at what is the meaning of cash accounting and what is the meaning of accrual accounting. And we also will look at the accounting standards, we will look at the IFRS and GAAP. So first let's start with cash accounting. Now when I talk about the accounting, right, basically there are two types of accounting is there. One is a cash accounting and one is a accrual accounting. Now cash accounting is you record the transaction as and when the transaction is realized. For example, let's say a company pays the rent expenses. So when let's say they are paying on 5th of the month, on 5th of the month when the expenses is realized or that is paid, the accounting transaction, the entry will be made. Or let's say a bank receives, a company receives the interest from the deposits which has made on 10th of the month. As and when the interest income is received, they will record. So this type of accounting is called as a cash accounting. Second method of accounting is called as a accrual accounting. Now here in the accrual accounting method, irrespective whether you receive the expenses or whether you incur the income, the accounting will be done as and when it is recognized. As per the accounting standards like IFRS and GAAP wants the firms to maintain accounting based on accrual system. Now let's look at in detail with an example how the accounting is done under the cash method and how it is done under the accrual method. Now first let's look at under the cash method. Let's say ABC company pay rent on 5th of June. Okay, on 5th of June, ABC company pays a rent of, let's say for example, $5,000. On 5th of June, they pay $5,000. Now, if you see in this string, right, the rent which is an expenditure is incurred or it is what we call in accounting as realized. So, the expenses over here is realized. So, when the expenses is realized, they make the accounting entry. Now, in this case, so the date will be on 5th June. The company makes the entry. The entry will be rent account debit to cash account credit for $5,000. So, the entry will be made. This type of accounting method, we call this as a cash method. Now, let's look at accrual method. How the accrual method works. Now, let's continue the same example. Let's say for example, ABC company are supposed to pay rent on the 5th of June, but the rent was paid on 10th of June. So here if you see, the rent is supposed to be paid on 5th of June. However, the company actually paid the rent on the 10th of June. So in accrual method, what happened is on 5th June, okay, on 5th June, the expenses is recognized. So when the expense is recognized, the entry need to be made. Now here what will happen is company will on 5th of June, they will say rent account debit to rent payable account. Now why the entry says as rent payable account is the rent is not yet paid. It is, but however the expenditure is recognized. And on 10th of June, when the 10th of June actual expenditure gets incurred, the entry they will pass is rent payable account debit to cash account credit. Now, if you see under accrual method, the rent is there are two entries are captured. One entry is actually passed on 5th of June when the expenses is recognized, and another entry passed on 10th June when the actual expenses is realized. So in case of accrual method, there will be two entries will be passed, one on the day of recognition, another one on the day of realization. So that's the difference between a cash account method and the accrual account method. Now, talking about accounting standards. Now, around what is accounting standard? Basically, accounting standards talks about what is the accounting policies, procedures, and principles that need to be followed while performing the accounting duty. Now, across the world, there are two methods are there. One is very famous IFRS. IFRS stands for International Financial Reporting Standards, which is followed across the most of the countries in the world. It actually follows the IFRS method. And there is another accounting method which is called as a GAAP, which is known as generally accepted accounting principle. GAAP is followed only in US. So around there are basically two accounting systems are there, which are like IFRS and GAAP. Now, if you look at some of the differences, right? IFRS stands for International Accounting Standards, International Account Standards, and it is actually published in 2001. So basically, these are some of the basic differences between IAS and IFRS. Thanks for your time.